the confidence that he's instilled in 8 days since he's played 2 games, like Kirk Cousins, the heart and soul of that team, okay, goes down with a torn Achilles, and then you're like, okay, what do we do? And then you just keep winning games.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Chasin' It. Trey, Wingo here with Chase Daniel. We have started the back half of the season, Chase, and Week 10 was certifiably insane, especially for one division, right? Like the AFC North on Sunday was like the craziest episode of the worst reality television show you've ever seen. Everything that could have possibly happened happened, and most of them happened in that game between the Ravens and the Browns.
Yeah, just complete wildness on Sunday. I mean, like, you know, I'm here sitting with like all 6 early game windows on. Earlier watched the Colts Patriots, and then kids are screaming, kids are in the pool, and I'm just like so glued to my TV. Because literally of like what happened with the AFC North, especially, I mean, I literally turned off the Cleveland Baltimore game when they were up 17 points. I was like, oh, it's
31-17. They had a 97.1% win probability, and basically the Browns became Jason Bateman from Bad Bosses, like the QR. That's essentially what happened. So let's start there, because the other games with the AFC North were nuts. This was a real statement win for Cleveland for a variety of reasons. Number one, the Ravens had boat raced good teams. Going into this game, they had played 3 games against teams over 500. They'd won all 3, and they'd won them by an average margin of 34.5 to 4. I mean, they were killing good teams, including the Lions a couple of weeks ago, who went into Baltimore. So what does it say to you about Cleveland that went to Baltimore and did what nobody's been able to do?
Well, especially when you go to Baltimore, that's the biggest thing. And I cover this on Friday and a couple of my other shows. It's like the way the Baltimore Ravens are playing at home, specifically to how the Browns were playing on the road. The Browns were 1-2 on the road. Their defense was giving up 30 points a game. It was like 250 yards passing game, and they were outstanding at home. So you would have thought, just based on stats and everything like that, that Baltimore was going to boat race them just like they had other ones, and they were up 15 points, and then the Browns score 16 unanswered to win. And to me, the story of that game is not the defense, which we thought it was, right? The Browns were the number 1 defense in the league, and the Baltimore was the number 2 defense in the league. That story of the game, without a doubt, was Deshaun Watson, and sort of how he is played as of late. And to say as of late, especially in the second half, he completed all 14 of his second half attempts, 134 yards and a touchdown. He guided the Browns down the field in the final possession to set up the game-winning field goal. So all of that stuff and everything that's been going on with Deshaun Watson, right? That's been the story of the year. Their defense is really good, but Deshaun has been in, he's been out. We've been talking about him being injured. We've been talking about that. And you just sort of see some of these quotes. I'm going to read it for you. Some of these quotes really tell the story for me, because as a quarterback,
before you go on to those quotes, I think it's important to focus on what you said about Deshaun Watson, because look, he's got the best contract that the history of the NFL will ever give. No one's ever given that contract again. He has completely underperformed. I mean, the memes about Deshaun Watson helping this team to the 5-3 record were hilarious. He's that guy in the safety unit, which is not really doing anything, watching everybody else do the work. And I actually put it out there on Twitter. I'm never calling it X. Putting it on Twitter and Threads and Instagram. I said, look, this is a chance that Deshaun Watson has to step up today. He has to step up and prove that he can be the guy that they paid him to be, because he hasn't been in the year and a half that he's been there. And for him to do what you just said he did, complete all 14 passes in the second half against a really, really good Ravens defense. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, more than anything else, Chase, this gives you hope that this team might be actually able to do something.
Well, it's finally exactly what you said. It's finally what they paid him all that money to do, what they thought that he'd been able to do. And look, he was out of the game for a year for obvious reasons and just struggled actually getting into it. And just it takes a little bit when you're out for so long to actually, especially he's been hurt. Like, let's just call it what it is. He was hurt probably a lot worse than a lot of people thought. And for him to actually focus in on the road, like this is why they paid him that insane amount of guaranteed money to go on the road against a division foe and to play the way he did, especially in the second half. The first half, to me, didn't play very well. He was in, he was out. He was trying to feel out the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense, honestly, like the first half was flying around. It was
great.
Classic Ravens defense. And all of a sudden they found something. Like I'm not a huge believer, Trey, in second half adjustments.
We've talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it because at halftime it's 10 minutes. You go in, you get a peanut butter and jelly, you get some lemonade, you get some water, whatever, some electrolytes, and you're back out there and you rarely talk.
You take a leak.
You take a leak, and I really do think that something clicked within that offense and they said something or they saw something that other teams quite honestly hadn't with the Ravens, because to put up what the numbers they put up, 33 points against the number 2 defense, like that to me says a lot.
The number 1 scoring defense. I mean, the Ravens had the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL.
Yeah, and the thing that I want to get to these quotes because to me that is like you can just feel something special brewing around Cleveland. Like this to me is a defining win. They called it. Okay, their team called it a defining win when you can go onto the road like that, okay? He's a warrior, Browns coach, Kevin Stefanski said. Makes plays when they're not there, makes unbelievable throws, never a doubt in his mind how this game was going to turn out, okay? He's a gamer, Browns All-Pro. Joel Bitonio said of Watson, all week I sensed this focus from him. That was a really telling quote. And then finally, Browns DN Myles Garrett kept on telling y'all, once he hits his stride, he's going to be back to his previous ways. We're just seeing a glimpse into what he can be and who he is. That tells me that he, first of all, has never lost the locker room. There's a lot of talk on like, this injury stuff. That tells me that these guys believe in him. Yeah. And when you as a quarterback can get your teammates to rally around you, not only does it bring you more confidence, but you can go out there and play loose. Like, hey, I don't have to press. I can just be myself. I got to trust the guys around me. It's finally seeming like him and Stefanski are on the same page. So all encompassing, like that to me was the story of the game. We can talk later about the Ravens and their defense and what's coming up for them. But to me, like all this negative talk in the national media about Deshaun Watson, he shut them up today, especially his second half showing.
He certainly did. So let's talk about the Ravens for a second. They were up big in the first half. They were up big late in this game, and they could not close. I already told you that they played other 500 teams that were over 500. They played very well. Is this a one-off against a really special defensive unit that was able to make some plays in Cleveland, or do you have concerns about Baltimore after this?
I don't really have concerns about Baltimore, and quite honestly, I like bad takes exposed, old takes exposed, whatever that Twitter account is. Because I tweeted, I'm like, quite honestly, the Ravens are one of the best teams in the National Football League now. I still believe that. However, you don't love how they finished the game. They got, the Browns scored the last 16 points, 16 unanswered, and Baltimore could do nothing like to handle that at all, and especially at home, And moving forward, there's some big games coming up, right, with Baltimore, and you all want to be able to keep pace with the Chiefs, right? That's the story. Is like, hey, can you get home field advantage? Can you make the road to the playoffs go through Baltimore? Okay, because it seemed like that AFC North that we're talking about is stacked. But honestly, the winner on bye week is the Chiefs because they were the closest team to it. And that's something you got to talk about as well is like, hey, look, not only are you trying to win your division, you're trying to do all that. This team believes, and Baltimore believes, that they are good enough, and I think they're good enough to play into a number 1 seed, but this really hurts that chance, especially with the Chiefs on bye week right now. So that to me is sort of the story of that Baltimore Ravens defense. I'm not down on them, and I'm not down on that offense. I just think this can leave a sour taste in your mouth, and if you let it snowball, right, it's going to come down to those leaders in that locker room. If you let it snowball, then it becomes, okay, you're wasting a lot of talent on a really good team. I don't think that's going to happen because I trust Harbaugh at the end of the day, honestly, like been around forever, done it at a high level. But always, right, Trey, to your point, like it's always been, what's the Baltimore Ravens' weakness?
The playoffs.
The playoffs.
In the Lamar Jackson era, let's just be honest.
Yes.
I mean, they won Super Bowl 47 with Joe Flacco and Harbaugh was there, but in the Lamar Jackson era, the weakness is the playoffs. And this is going to be a team, no matter what happens, Chase, in the regular season, cool, now show me in the playoffs.
Well, and that's why I feel like they are needing to play and they want to play for that number 1 seed. And so that to me is more important than a division title because this Ravens team has that talent to be able to do that. So this loss to them was a big blow for that.
Well, not only you mentioned the Chiefs winning, the Chiefs also win because another team lost that people think might be able to give them trouble, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll get to the Houston side of it in a second because there's a great story brewing in Houston. But we're sort of focusing in on the AFC North right now. The first drive of the game was clinical and surgical for the Bengals against the Texans. Joe Burrow moved them right down the field, put them up 7-0. Everything was rolling. And then for about the next 2.5 or 2 quarters, they got 22 yards of offense. And the Texans went up and down the field. Joe Burrow threw 2 horrible interceptions in this game. He was only bailed out because C.J. Stroud, who did everything right again, which we'll get to in a second, threw a really bad interception late in the game that brought them back. But they still couldn't punch it in. And then the Texans go down and find a way to win. Chase, I don't know how you feel about it, but this to me was a devastating, and I mean a devastating loss for the Bengals for 2 reasons. One, because they started 1-3, so they were already behind. They went into this game 5-3. They come out at 5-4. Everybody in their division has a winning record right now in the AFC North, and they have the worst record in the AFC North. And let's just, for fun, okay, let's just do this, okay? I'm going to call this up right now. This is the schedule, the remaining schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it is brutal, okay? They have a Thursday night game coming up against the Baltimore Ravens, all right? That's the start. Then they got to play the Steelers twice. They got to play Kansas City. They have to play Jacksonville. Suddenly they got to play Minnesota. Now the Colts are in there. They should probably win that one. Then they got to play Cleveland to finish the season. Yeah. If the Bengals don't make the playoffs, and they're very capable of doing it, but if the Bengals don't make the playoffs, you're going to look at this game against the Houston Texans that they probably should have put away early or put away late, and they couldn't do it, as the one that really killed them.
100%. And you look at the updated AFC North standings, which every team, like you said, has winning records. Baltimore 7-3, Pittsburgh 6-3, Cleveland 6-3. Cincy is in last place at 5-4. If you just put me and tell me on paper and who had been playing prior to today, I'd be like, I'd put Cincy in top 3 in the entire AFC. Okay, yep. And they're 4th place in their division. So I'm with you. People on Twitter, X, whatever, it's Twitter, are saying like, hey, is it a better win for the Texans or a worse loss for the Bengals? I'd say without a doubt, I agree with you. Worse loss for the Cincinnati Bengals, and not only how they lost, right? With you referenced it, and I'm glad you did, but it was 300. So after the first drive for Cincy, it was through 2.5 other quarters. It was 376 yards Houston, 26 yards Cincy.
How does that
happen?
They
had 26 yards after. And I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Is like Burrow in the middle of the game looked like lethargic. They had like 6 straight punts and 3 and outs. And I don't know if it's more to talk about the Texans defense or if it's what you say about Cincy. But I can tell you that anyone who follows NFL, especially AFC North, would tell you that Cincy is or was the sort of the team that was like on the rise, right? They had won 4 straight, going for 5th straight. Yeah. And then for them to lose the way they did and to an up-and-coming Texans team who we'll talk a little about later, it just is like going into the week, right? We talked about playoff standings, and all 4 of those teams were in the playoffs. So, like, they're just going to beat up on each other. Like, you look at the schedule, and if they can get to 10 wins, in my opinion, like, it's a good year. When you start the way they did, fought back, and were able to do what they did, I still think overall they're really, really good. But, I mean, you look at, like, even this is crazy to me because you think about Cincy. Burrow had 347 yards passing. Mixon had 46 yards rushing. They had over 400 yards of offense, okay, and still scored 27 points, okay? They are in that division, okay, points for. They've only scored 182 points, and that defense has given up 192. Okay, they're still like technically one of the worst offenses in all of football. And the fact is, they started really bad. They've been on a tear as of late. But then you just that sort of erases what you have because you're one game over 500. That will get you nowhere, and in fact, out of the playoff picture going into Week 11.
Well, again, you said 10 wins. Okay, well, so they're 5-4 right now. They're 5-4, right? So that means they got to get 5, right? Here's their schedule. All right, here's the Bengals' remaining schedule: at Baltimore, home for Pittsburgh, at Jacksonville. Indianapolis, Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, at Kansas City, and then they finish up home with Cleveland.
I have 3, maybe 4, so they get to 9 and 8.
I mean, yeah. Does that get you in? Does that get you in a very competitive AFC? I do not know.
If you're 10, I think you're getting in. So 10's a magic number, right? It's been like that since the game went to 17 games.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. Games. We're not saying they can't do it.
No.
We're just saying it's much more difficult after the game they gave away today. So before we move on to the Steelers then, let's talk about this. Considering what the Ravens did in collapsing against the Browns, and considering how the Bengals sort of took 2.5 quarters off, how important for both teams is this upcoming Thursday night game when they go to Baltimore?
Yeah. I mean, it's crucial, right? Like they in short week, so you're probably feeling bad. You're probably beat up from this past game. But to me, it's crucial. I mean, it's just as like, hey, like prime time as prime time gets. Because I know from the last Thursday night game we saw, which was a yawner, as you like to say it, Bears-Panthers, they started previewing, Amazon did, that game in like the second quarter.
Hey, I know, we know this game sucks, but look, next week we got a good one. Next week we got a good one.
Oh my gosh, like what are we doing? Like,
to me
it was
critical.
Oh, it's critical, and so I mean it. I just go back if they win, and then I don't know. It's an interesting game, and sometimes though, Trey, as players, you almost want to get back on the field. Like most players hate Thursday night games. Let's just call it how it is. Yeah, but if you lose the way you lost, right? Like this, like I'm almost thinking like, hey, forget all the prep, forget all this, because you have 1 day to prep, right? You get off. They'll get off tomorrow. They'll be in Tuesday for a walkthrough, and then they're traveling, right? You'll travel Wednesday. It's like unbelievable. Like it's just I don't know, man. It's an interesting dynamic for sure coming up in this game.
Listen, the Bengals started 0-2 last year, made the playoffs, right? They started 0-2 again this year, and then they won a game. Then they went 1-3. This one's tough. I mean, like they can do it. If any team can go on a run, I believe the Bengals can. But that is a brutal schedule, and it starts with that huge Thursday night showdown in Baltimore. And the Ravens don't want to be embarrassed twice at home in a span of 5 days, so that's going to be a big part of it as well. Yeah. All right, before we get to Houston, because it's a huge story. What are the Steelers? Like, is this just a tribute to Mike Tomlin? Yeah, that's exactly right.
6-3.
They still have been outscored by the season and massively outgained for the season. But here they are, 6-3, finding ways to win, and they win 1-score games. I think every one of their wins this year has been a 1-score win. What does it say to you about a team that is able to string that together again and again over a season? Like we saw Minnesota do it crazily off the charts good last year. They had 11 1-score games, 11 1-score wins, which is never going to happen again. But I think Pittsburgh already has 6 of these things. Is it a tribute to Tomlin? Is it a tribute to the defense? Where do you go with what we're seeing out of Pittsburgh?
I don't go to the offense. That is for sure where I don't go. They've only scored 156 points this year. My first thought, based on the roster that they have, is Tomlin and defense. And Tomlin is a guy. I mean, it's just like I constantly think, for the most part, that coaching is somewhat overrated because you can only coach these players to do so much, and then when they get between the white lines, it's them. Like it's the players, and that's just what it is.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something real quick about that? What I love about that, my good friend Merrill Hodge, who I work with forever, he had the greatest line about that point you just made. Like, you can prep them and do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, the players have to go execute. He used to say all the time, coaches have all the power but no control. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's great.
That's exactly what
I'm talking about. And every coach I've been around, honestly, is like, it's players, not plays. Like it's players, not plays. Like you can put the team in a good position to be able to make it a fact where I don't know. You can be. It just comes down to the roster. Like at the end of the day, like for me, that's what it is. And I think that Tomlin, though, when you look at the Steelers, has put them in a position to be successful because, quite honestly, he's probably telling Matt Canada, look, just don't mess it up. Like, just don't mess it up. Just be efficient. Just do what you do, and don't mess it up. But then that defense, like I love Pittsburgh's defense. Like I think they've always been the fact of the matter, and they're able to actually go out there and carry a team, which you don't see very much of. But I'm looking at Kenny Pickett's numbers against Green Bay. Yeah. He was 14 of 23, 126 yards in a football game, and you win.
Yeah.
And you win.
And that's the way it's been all season with them. That's the way it's been all season.
Yeah. I don't get it. And
I want to be
such
clear.
A weird team.
Yeah. But they're 6-3. And here they are.
Yeah.
And they're not in the last place in the division, and the Bengals are. And just to be clear, because people are going to say, when coaching's overrated? You can coach the players to do the right things, but at some point they got to execute it. That's what we're saying here. Like, we're not saying you don't need to have a good coach. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying at some point the coach is going to deliver the game plan, but it's up to the players to execute it, and the coach can only sit there and say, I told you to do this. It's up to the players. Dude, it's up to the players.
Well, like, people can think all they want, and people haven't been in an NFL locker room where Andy Reid and Sean Payton's like, look, dude, I can only tell you so much. Like, just do what you do, and it's players. Like, I've had every head coach I've been around, it's players, not the plays. Like, we can dig up all these crazy cool plays, and it might work and not, but you still have to be the one to go out there and execute. The biggest thing that I think that coaching is not overrated on is a person and a guy that can talk to the team. That is what I want. I want a person and a coach like Dan Campbell that can actually go out there and look you in the eye and motivate men. Okay, not young men, not college-age kids. That's easy.
30-year-olds.
Okay, give them some money. Yeah. 30-year-old grown men. Yeah. Give me that type of coach that I want to run through a wall for, and that, to me, will make me say coaching's not overrated.
Okay, we'll get to Dan in a second, but I think another guy you're talking about is now coaching the most surprising team in football, and that's the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans is a guy that can motivate his team. DeMeco Ryans is a guy that has gone out there and showed it. And C.J. Stroud, what he did Sunday against the Bengals was, to me, maybe more impressive than what he did last week in the huge game against the Bucs. 470 yards, 5 touchdowns. Because he was hot the entire game. The most important thing I saw out of C.J. Stroud today, and you can speak on this, he made the critical error, right? They're up 10 points. Yeah. Joe Burrow has just thrown an interception in the end zone. Gift, right? All you got to do is don't make the big mistake, and you're going to walk out of there with a win. Instead, what happens? He throws the interception deep in his territory with about 3 minutes to play, sets them up, and they come up and tie this game. So he makes the critical mistake, the one thing that you can't do. He makes the one error you can't make as a rookie or a young quarterback. And what happens after that? He gets another chance, and he forgets about it and marches them right down the field and puts them in position for the game-winning field goal. That, to me, was more impressive than anything he did against the Bucs, because anybody can play well when you're playing well. It's the guys that can make chicken salad out of chicken shit after the biggest mistake of the game to come in there and say, I'm good, I'm mentally strong, and I'm going to forget that and get where I need to be. That was impressive.
You hit it right on, man, and I totally agree with you. And actually, a story about CJ. So I actually today talked with Peter King, and Peter King wanted to ask me something on the Texans, and he had just literally talked to CJ Stroud. Yeah. And his first question that he asked, okay, I'm giving y'all some insight. He said, "What happened on the interception?" And CJ, to his face, just said, "Man, I effed that up. Like, it's on me. Like." I love the fact that he owned it, man.
Yep.
Like, accountability. Like, he knew, like, of course it was his fault. Like, put it 3 feet out more, at least like incomplete. Like don't throw. He knew it, and to me, that is growth, and that tells me that you know exactly who you are in this league. And the fact that the matter is, if you just actually like, we can talk a little bit about the more performance, and I will, but I want to say something because I said it on Friday, and I said if you just put C.J. Stroud's picture on a screen, okay, and then silhouette him, so you have no clue who he is, and you put all of his passing stats and the offensive stats. Every single major category he is top 5 in, okay? Yeah. So you would say that just by the play of this young man, now forget about the team that has just by the play, he absolutely deserves to be in the MVP race. 100%. The way
he put himself in the conversation
rookie,
today.
And you're talking about a rookie quarterback, okay, back-to-back 2-minute drive wins. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of quarterbacks, I don't care who you are, especially a rookie, when you make that massive mistake in front of a national audience on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals defense, which the prior 4 games was playing at an extremely high level, top 6 or 7 in every category the last 4 games. A lot of those guys can go in the tank and just be like, man, like I gave it my all. Like, of course I'm going to try. But to actually like go out there and do it, and Joe Burrow is on the other sideline, and you outplayed Joe Burrow at home, and you beat Joe Burrow as a rookie, like that just tells me a lot about you personally, and it tells me honestly a lot about that offensive staff, because I want to give that offensive staff its flowers right now, because what they've been able to do right now. And I sent out a tweet earlier today, because what I was able to do, Bobby Slowick, Ben McDaniel, Shane Day, Jared Johnson, Bill Lazor, DeMeco Ryans brought all those guys in to surround themselves around a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud that they thought could be great, okay? Add Case Keenum to that because he's damn near a coach, okay?
Yep.
They put every type of resource around this guy. And, man, has it paid off. Not only like the belief that Bobby Slowick has in him, but the fact of the matter is the design, the creativity, the way they use motion, the way they design plays, everything has to deal with, are you comfortable, young man? CJ Stroud, do you like this play? If not, I don't care, it's out. Like Bobby Slowick to me could say, you know what, I have a rookie quarterback, I have a staff, I've done this before, I've been around Shanahan, I've been around the good offenses of the 49ers. I could actually go in and be like, you know what, you were just running this no matter what. It's the relationship between a play caller and especially a rookie quarterback for CJ to trust Bobby the way he does, and for Bobby to trust CJ the way he does. It's beautiful. And honestly, like I said it before, it takes 2 guys. It takes 2 guys, maybe 1 guy to transform an entire organization. Like you can't tell me that you were looking forward to watching the Texans this year. And now they're a team that you want to see and you want to watch. Yeah. And those 2 guys are DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. Completely transform the foreseeable future for this organization.
Yeah, and if CJ Stroud's in the MVP conversation, DeMeco Ryans has to be in the top 2
100%.
In terms of Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year. It's been an unbelievable journey so far for them. Okay, you mentioned Dan Campbell. Big win for them. Late field goal to win it. Back and forth game in SoFi against the Chargers. Did we learn more about Detroit, or did we learn more about the Chargers in the loss? Detroit in the win, Chargers in the loss.
I think you probably learn more about Detroit, because you lose a game like that in Baltimore, you go on by, you're itching to get back to play, right?
Well, then they had the Monday night. Then they had the Monday night game.
Yeah, but then you go on the road and into SoFi, which it sounded like a Lions home game, so it's not a hard stadium to play at. It's like damn near a home game for every away team. But
for both the Rams and the Chargers, let's be honest.
Yes,
for both the Rams and the Chargers, yeah.
SoFi is an away game for Rams and Chargers, but you go into that game, and the amount of times that I guarantee you that the Lions and Chargers were not expecting an offensive shootout like that, and the Chargers to stick around like they were, and Justin Herbert to have the type of game that he did, because that defense was playing pretty well, and then for Jared Goff and for Dan, like that, to me, that coaching is not overrated. Like that coaching, the call of the game, you're in field goal range, it's 4th and 2.
Oh, I think it was like 4th and 4. Teams. I think it was 4th and I think it was longer than 4th and 2, wasn't it?
It was 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and for them And Dan Campbell, because that decision comes from Dan Campbell, for him to say, you know what, nope, we're gonna go for it, even though we can easily make a field goal. We don't want to give it back to Justin Herbert. That's saying, man, I trust my offense. I trust Jared Goff. I trust Ben Johnson. Like, to me, that was the ballsiest coaching decision of the day, because you're on the road. If it doesn't if you aren't good, like, and you lose that game, like, that's the story. And that's the other thing about Detroit. It is a win. Because you look, and I sent it in our text thread. I'm going to pull it up now. This is the best thing about reactionary shows, is you could just go, okay, look at the next five. Look at the next five for Detroit. Okay, they could very well be 13-2, and have you're talking about this team as a possible number 1 seed. Okay, they got the Bears, win. They got the Packers, probable win. They got the Saints. Okay, toughest game. Bears and Broncos. Those are the next 5. Okay, they play Bears, Packers, Saints, Broncos. You can't tell me right now you don't think they're going to be 13-2 at this point.
Well, here's the best part about that. Okay, the Detroit Lions have not had a 10-win season since 2014. They have not won their division since 1993. They have not won a playoff game since 1991. That 31-year stretch.
93 division.
Yeah, 91 the last time they won a playoff game. Okay, so all of those things are in play for Detroit, and sometimes you take your opponent's best shot and you find a way to make it at the end. That's exactly what they did. And I think they went on 4th down 4 or 5 times in this game. No one's gone for it more on 4th down. Yeah. No one's gone for it more on 4th down than Dan Campbell, not even Brandon Staley. So the Lions have an identity. And I mean, they went for it a couple times on 3rd and 5 and 4th and 6, or 3rd and 6 and 4th. They just ran it up the middle. Like they showed no respect. No respect.
That was wild. On 4th and 5, you're running to just a draw? Like, what
running up the middle. Like, you guys can't stop us. We think you're soft. That's exactly what that is. Okay? So we've established an identity for Detroit now. What have we established for the Chargers? They had that big win. It was ugly, but they got special teams points on Monday night. All those things were working in their favor. They were back to 500. Things were rolling. This kills them. This loss kills them.
Yeah, especially because you got to love the way that the offense played against the top 15 defense at home and behind behind the chains. You're out two of your top 3 receivers, Mike Williams and Josh Palmer. Okay, Keenan Allen has a masterful day, but he missed a quarter or so.
Yeah, he went out with a shoulder injury.
He went out with a shoulder, but ended up with still 175 yards. So you got, Q, the big receiver, and you got Jalen Guyton. So, like, you're doing this. If you're the Chargers on offense, you're still putting up 430 yards of offense, okay, against that. But your defense gives up 535 yards and how many points? How many points they score? 41.
Well, 41. The Lions scored 41.
Yes, so your defense gives up 535 yards and 41 points. Like, it's almost to the fact it's like, okay, like, who do you put it on? Who do you put it on? Because the problem right now, overall, is not the offense. Okay, go ahead. What do you think?
Tom Telesco has a very tough decision to make this offseason. Tom's a friend of mine, and I think he does a wonderful job. He has stacked that roster. Okay,
100%.
I mean, he apologized for bringing in J.C. Jackson, but everyone, when they brought him in, they thought it was a good idea. He was playing on an outstanding level, the corner. You have Khalil Mack, you have Bosa, you make all these moves. They're just not performing. And you know where this goes. It goes on the head coach. And if I'm Brandon Staley, I'm making sure that I'm making sure that I don't have an adjustable rate mortgage on the house right now.
Oh my God. I mean, look, at the end of the day, someone's responsible for it, and it is because, they're. What are they? They're 4-5 right now.
They're 4-5.
5-4 sounds so much better. You get momentum from beating a really good Detroit team. Let's be honest, like we just said, the next 5 games for Detroit, this was by far their most difficult game on the schedule as of the next 5, and they're able to get out of there with a win. And honestly, like, at the end of the day, like, I just feel bad for Justin in the offense because he's having a magnificent year, even with finger and all. Like, he's having a really, really good year.
He threw for 3 or 4 touchdowns and 330 something yards today. Like,
yeah,
he was good.
He was really good. I mean, yeah, he threw for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns. He threw an interception on the first drive of the game on trying to throw the ball away. Okay, so what? Like, that to me. So he has a hell of a game. Keenan Allen, 11 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's just like they're putting up offensive numbers to win, but they're not getting wins.
All right. They're not, and they're in real trouble. We thought the Vikings were in real trouble a couple of weeks ago, and then Josh Dobbs to the rescue. Like, one of my favorite things about today, no matter what happened, when Josh Dobbs showed up at the stadium in Minnesota, a security guard had to tell him where the home locker room was. Again, this is how new it was. Remember, he joined them on the road last week in Atlanta. And by the way, we are continuing to boycott the NFC South on this show until someone shows that they want to win the damn thing. All right, the NFC South is irrelevant on this show until someone does something that makes us think, okay, we'll talk about you. And I get it. The Bucs won. They beat Will Levis and the Titans. Whatever. But Josh Dobbs, man, like the stuff he's continuing, and I don't know how it's going to go. Right? I don't know how much longer this is going to be because he's been around for a while. He's bounced around to a lot of teams. But only Lamar Jackson has more rushing yards from the quarterback position this year than Josh Dobbs. He has just been a godsend for a Minnesota team that was floundering after the Kirk Cousins injury and thought their season was over. They're the only team in the NFC North that can make a legitimate run at Detroit.
Yeah, and honestly, you can see sort of the belief that Josh Dobbs has brought. That's where I go. Like, okay, on the field, he's awesome, but the belief a little bit that – and the confidence that he's instilled in 8 days since he's played 2 games, like Kirk Cousins, the heart and soul of that team, okay, goes down with a torn Achilles, and then you're like, okay, what do we do? And then you just keep winning games. Like you win your next 2, Atlanta, and then the Saints, which you put up 27 points against the Saints defense. Like to me, and you've been in the offense for 2 weeks, like you gotta start talking about him as potentially like really good quarterbacking. I know I talked about in a text thread that we had, like, okay, look, I don't think Josh Dobbs is that good enough to like elevate a team's play. And
Chinch, show up the receipts when we produce this. Yeah. Put the text up because
I knew you were going to say that, so I wanted to say it. We were going back and forth, and that's the thing is like I'm just so impressed with how he's able to and the ability to extend plays has really struck me the last 2 weeks with Dobbs, and it's his legs, it's his running ability, but it's also the wiggle in the pocket, or the slight movement and step up and go out just to find enough time downfield. Those type of plays kill defenses. They hate that kind of thing because they have everything covered. And yeah, you just can't say enough about really the coaching job too, like KOC has done, Kevin O'Connell, because you lose, you're on your third quarterback, keeping that team together. And by the way, Justin Jefferson, he didn't play. He's the best receiver in football. Like once you get him back, it's just going to keep going. It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a feel good story.
That's the best point. Their best player is close to coming back, and he'll make Josh Dobbs a better throwing quarterback, no question about it. All right, before we get on to the double-fisted bleep show of a couple of teams that we need to talk about, crazy thought for me, Chase. It's as if a team that trades for a pass rusher and gets their best offensive lineman back, and arguably one of the top 5 offensive linemen in the history of the NFL, and gets a game-breaking wide receiver back, suddenly makes your quarterback better. And that's certainly what we saw in Brock Purdy. Look, I tweeted this out. I didn't X it out. I tweeted it out. Brock was never the problem, but it's amazing how much better he can play with Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel back in the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, Trent Williams is, like, I agree with you on that sentiment.
He's insane.
But sort of the kicker here is Deebo and what he brings to that offense. I mean, it wasn't great numbers. 3 carries, 29 yards, a touchdown, and 4
you got to account for him.
30 yards.
But you just have to account for him.
So it opens up Kittle, who had 3 for 116 with a long of like averaging 40 yards a catch for a tight end. Okay. And then Brandon Ayuk, 3 for 55. So the way they're in a touchdown, the way they're able to spread the ball around with him, it becomes now it's a 4-headed monster rather than a 3-headed monster because CMC, Ayuk, Kittle. Yeah. Okay. Then you add Deebo to it. It just makes his job better. And honestly, like getting back to scoring 30 points and in your ways of doing things like that, like this is a really, really big win for San Fran on a lot of different levels. They had lost 3 straight going into it. Everyone's like, Brock Purdy sucks. Like, go with like darn. I'm like, you guys haven't watched an ounce of football your entire life. Like, he's not the problem. I totally agree with your ex or your tweet. See, we're just going back and forth with this stuff. And then, but honestly too, like a little bit of a poor showing by Jacksonville. Won 5 straight going into it. They're at home and then sort of run into a brick wall. But
they got punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth.
I mean, call it what it is. But you got to love the way San Fran's playing right now.
Oh yeah, listen, it's everyone. This is where I drives me crazy when people say, "Well, this is the team to beat right now. This is the team." Everyone's going to be that team at some point in the season. The important thing is to be the team to beat in the playoffs. Okay, so everyone's going to go up, everyone's going to go down. So you can get all excited about all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, every team's going to have good days and they're going to have shit burgers. Okay, and that's the season. That's the way it is. That's the only reason there's only one team that's ever won all the games ever. Okay,
ever.
So just like relax. The Niners are going to be fine. They're a very, very good football team.
Yep.
And now it's time for 2 teams that have been standard bearers in the NFL and that are both unmitigated disasters. Let's start with New England. The Patriots fall to 2-8, and I am sure there's going to be a meme very soon of Robert Kraft, the owner, sitting in the box in Frankfurt after something went wrong in the first half, just like this. Oh, like just the most defeated he's been in his billionaire life. It is horrendous. And you and I have talked about this since the start of the season, Chase, and now more people are sort of picking up steam. There's a real possibility that we are watching the end of Bill Belichick in New England because there is nowhere to go for this team.
No, and it's a long plane ride back with Kraft and Belichick from Germany, and I don't see them firing him during season. I imagine the way it will go is like, hey, we're going to say it's a mutual parting of ways, and then Bill Belichick will have a job within a day, if not already a job right now that his agents. Okay, well I know our time is done.
If he wants it. I mean, he's going to be 71 next year.
He wants to get the record, dude.
I agree.
Record. He's so close. 2 seasons max, 3 maybe. And so it's hard to watch. Like, and I said this, and I'm gonna be honest. Like, I picked New England to go to Germany and beat the Colts. Okay, and for a couple of reasons. One, I just thought that there was so much talk during the week of Bill Belichick and how his job security and stuff. And sometimes those weeks they can rally teams. Obviously, not the case. Pretty boring game in my opinion to watch. Very low scoring. And then I got to thinking, like, okay, how can I talk about Bill Belichick and not be disrespectful? And here it is. I did it on national television on Friday. Here's what I said, and it holds true even more today than it did on Friday. Okay, you can say whatever you want about Bill Belichick, the GM. Okay? Yeah, but you can't say anything about Bill Belichick, the coach. And I go to the GM thing. He has surrounded, especially go to offense, he has surrounded Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi with guys that cannot separate at wide receiver. There is not one skill position player on that team that I'm scared of. And quite honestly, the Colts, what they did, they just said, hey, we're going to do what the last 3 or 4 teams have done against you, New England. We're going to play press man. We're going to get home against that offensive line, and we're going to sack the hell out of Mac Jones, which the Colts did. Colts had like 4 or 5 sacks. And another thing that just irks me so much is that Bill Belichick, the GM, decided that it was a good idea to go into the season, okay, with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi as your potential starter. Yep. There were so many free agents that you could have got for less than $20 million on the market that would have done a better job than those 2 guys. And obviously, you know, Mac got benched and Bailey came in, put in a horrible spot, by the way. What are we trying to do? Like, I can't imagine as a quarterback, I'm on a freezing cold sideline in Germany, and all of a sudden, hey, we're benching the starter, 2-minute drive, go in and win the game. Fake spike debacle, all that stuff. And so that's really where I see it. Like, you criticize Belichick, the GM, all you want, but as a coach, like, in my opinion, he'll go down as one of the best of all time.
He will, but here's the also undeniable fact. he's much better with Tom Brady. The numbers are what the numbers are. The numbers are what the numbers are at this point. It happened in Cleveland, and it's happening as soon as Tom left. I mean, let's just go through this, okay? And I'm not being disrespectful because I'm being honest. And the thing about Bill is, you talk to anybody that's been coached by Bill, he will be honest with you in his evaluation of you, and that's all you can ask for, okay? In the years since Tom Brady left, 2020 COVID season, Cam Newton didn't make the playoffs. 2021, when they draft Mac Jones, they sneak into the wild card, get blown out by Buffalo in the wild card. 2022, they don't make the playoffs. 2023, they're not making the playoffs. That's what it is. Okay, that's what it is. And if you're Bill Belichick, you need to have a really honest conversation with yourself at this point about where you are in putting a football team together. Because without number 12, it's been really bad in New England.
Yeah. No, it hasn't been good. So you're the the Belichick Brady thing. You think it's Brady?
Well, I mean,
based on the stats,
the numbers
rattled off.
The numbers are the numbers. You know what I mean? He's under 500 in his coaching career without Tom Brady at his quarter. And I'm not discounting the things that he does. I'm just saying at the end of the day, you need a dude. Okay, you need a dude under center for you to play very well, and the Belichick and Brady thing is clearly leaning more towards it was Tom. If I don't know how you can come to any other conclusion. How can you justify any other point? Because if you do, you're not doing it on logic, and you're not doing it on reason, and you're not doing it on the results. You're doing it on something you believe, and that's fine if you want to believe that. But I'm going to come back to you with the facts and the numbers. And the numbers are ugly. The numbers are ugly outside of Matt Castle's 2008 season, where he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Outside
I think
of
that's
that,
a fair assessment.
The numbers are not in Bill's favor, and that's just what they are. And there's nothing in the favor of the Giants right now. I mean, the Giants.
I was literally just about to ask you, who do you think the worst team is, the Giants or the Patriots?
Well, I think it might be the Patriots, and here's why. Because they're winning. They're not winning with their quarter. I'll give the Giants this pass, and this is the only pass I'm giving them. Tommy DeVito, okay? And look, I'm happy for the kid. He's getting a chance to play. He grew up a Giants. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, it was supposed to be Daniel Jones, even though he wasn't very good. And then it was supposed to be Tyrod Taylor, and he got hurt. So they're on a guy that they never really thought they were going to play, okay? No. They never really thought they were going to play Tommy DeVito. Let's just be honest about it, especially his rookie year. He became the 10th rookie to start this at quarterback this season. That's the most, I think, in NFL history we've seen 10 rookie quarterbacks start games. Yep. So this is an outlier, but every decision the Giants have made this offseason has turned out to be wrong. To pay Daniel Jones turned out to be wrong. To think that they had the defensive pieces turned out to be wrong. The offensive line turned out to be wrong. Giving Saquon a little bit more money turned out to be wrong. Signing Darren Waller turned out to be wrong. Everything they have done has turned out to be wrong. And the Giants, from top to bottom, the DeVito factor is a huge part of it. I don't know where they go. And John Mara is going to have, he's going to have a really interesting decision this offseason. I don't think you get rid of Brian Daboll, but you got to make sure that you figure out what you're doing as a franchise.
Yeah, and I think the reasons you stated are why you're not getting rid of Brian Daboll, because a lot of those decisions, they were made in opinion with Daboll, but I think you got to give him another year, and I think that the way the Giants are moving, they're going to have a high pick in the draft, right? So my question, and that's what I don't know, I can't answer it, and I don't know if you can either. Has Daniel Jones, this is the story to me, has Daniel Jones played his last snap in New York?
The way I would look at it, I'd have to look at the dead money on the contract, because I know it's a 4-year contract, but it's really a 2-year contract. You know that. You know how that goes.
There's really a 2.
4-year 160 is 2 years, and we'll talk about it. Right? That's what most contracts. 2 years and maybe, if everything works, but nothing has worked. I mean, they played the Dallas Cowboys twice, and they've been outscored 89-17, and most of that 17 points were courtesy points by the Dallas Cowboys. Courtesy points.
Gosh. Yeah, and it's honestly it's one of those teams that they're hard to watch, right? So when I'm actually watching the game, it's okay, most teams I would say mind watching, but when you like today, I was trying to watch because I knew we would talk about them on the show. I was trying to watch the Giants, but even when they were on offense, I tend to be looking at Dallas's defense, and when they were on defense, I just looked at Dallas. So I really didn't even. I was like, it's just people in blue, like it's just blue jerseys. Like that's how I feel about them. Like it's true. It's just true. And what you just Dallas put it on them.
What you just said is the worst thing you can be. Not only in the NFL, but especially in the city of New York, irrelevant.
Yeah,
and the Giants are irrelevant. I mean, at least the Jets are tragically interesting, and every once in a while they do something. At least the Jets every once in a while do something like, well, maybe if we could do this. Yeah. The Giants are boring. They're uninteresting. They're irrelevant. They're just guys in blue, and that will not go over in New York for a second.
No. And that's it's especially New York, right? The market you talk about, and just all those. Like I just go back to all those bad decisions that you stated. Like it's just when you put it all out there at once, you're like, whoa, okay, and you say it out loud and you actually talk about it, and it's just I mean, I got no. They're just hard to watch, man. There's guys in blue. Like
we wish them all the best in their future endeavors, but unless something magical happens, I don't think we'll mention the words the New York Giants on this podcast for the rest of the year. And on that note, on that happy note for all our friends in New York, we say so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, and goodbye.